They didn't just fire me. They erased me. Like I was nothing, even though I was the only one keeping the company alive. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside like you didn't matter, this story is for you. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've ever had to prove your worth to people who should have known better. My name is Megan Rivers. I'm 32 years old, a corporate liaison and interpreter specializing in Mandarin Chinese. And until recently, I was the bridge between my American tech company and our most powerful clients in Shenzhen and Beijing. Now, I'm the woman they let go because someone in a corner office didn't know who the hell was actually holding the building up. I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. My mom, Angela, was a high school math teacher, strict but loving. Dad left when I was 9. Not much to say about him except he took all the stability and half the furniture when he walked out. It was just Mom, me, and my little brother Sam after that. I was the quiet achiever growing up. You know the type. Straight A's, AP classes, violin after school, never once late on a work assignment. But invisible. Always invisible. Even at home, Mom focused more on Sam because he needed more attention. I understood, but part of me still wanted someone to notice that I was there too, quietly holding everything together. That feeling never really went away. It just followed me into adulthood, got a desk job, and started wearing Ann Taylor blazers. I went to Ohio State, double majored in international relations and Chinese language. I had this one professor, Dr. Shu, who told me, "You have an ear most don't. You don't just speak Mandarin, you feel it." That stuck with me. I wasn't the most social person in college, but I knew who I was in the classroom. I was capable, valuable, and one day I'd prove that to the world. After graduating, I did a stint in D.C. as a freelance interpreter for some diplomatic conferences. But the pay was unstable. Eventually, I got picked up by a mid-sized tech logistics firm based out of Atlanta, Aeroforge Systems. They dealt mostly in aerospace components and software, and they were expanding rapidly into the Chinese market. They needed someone to interface with their new clients and partners across East Asia, someone fluent in Mandarin, culturally competent, and willing to travel. That someone was me. At first, it felt like a dream. I was flown to Shanghai twice in my first 3 months, negotiated a multi-million-dollar logistics software license with a firm in Guangdong entirely in Mandarin. Every time I returned to the States, my inbox would be filled with praise from the Chinese clients. But back at headquarters, no one seemed to care. They saw me as the translator girl. Never mind that I was also the one reading contracts, interpreting idiomatic business expressions, catching cultural errors that could have cost us deals. To them, I was just background noise. I remember one Monday morning, I walked into a quarterly strategy meeting. I just returned from a 10-day trip brokering a deal with one of the top defense contractors in Shandong province. I was running on 4 hours of sleep and jet lag. I slid into a chair at the long glass conference table. One of the junior execs, Elliot, leaned over and whispered, "You can sit this one out, Megan. This is more high-level stuff." I blinked at him. I had written the China strategy he was about to present. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, heart pounding, face hot, forcing my hands to stay still in my lap. I watched them discuss my work as if I didn't exist. Every time they referred to our regional insights, I wanted to scream, "That was me! You're reading my notes! You're quoting my analysis!" But I stayed quiet, like I always had. Because that's what women like me are taught to do. Be humble. Be helpful. Don't rock the boat. Don't make it about you. The CEO, Blake Hawthorne, barely knew my name. Blake was 42, tall, silver-streaked hair, always wearing custom suits with loafers that probably cost more than my rent. He had that kind of forced charisma, the kind that screams LinkedIn influencer but runs on ego and empty jargon. He'd smile at me like I was a secretary. Once I passed him in the break room and he said, "Hey, Melanie, right?" "It's Megan." "Right, Megan. Appreciate all that translating stuff you do." And then he walked away. Didn't ask where I'd just flown in from. Didn't ask why I was dressed in business attire at 7 a.m. on a Friday. Didn't ask about the 5 contracts in my bag that were signed because of me. I kept telling myself, just work harder, be indispensable. Eventually, they'll see you. But what I didn't know was that being indispensable only matters when people know what you're doing, when they want to see you. Everything came to a head in January. We were entering a joint venture with a Chinese aerospace startup, Yintech Dynamics. This was a make-or-break moment for the company. If the deal went through, it would expand our distribution to over 30 Chinese provinces. If it failed, our Asia division would crumble. I worked night and day with Yintech's team. Long Zoom calls at 3 a.m., writing up contracts in Mandarin, fixing subtle mistranslations in the original pitch that would have caused massive confusion. I even helped rewrite the onboarding process so it respected Chinese corporate hierarchy, something Blake's original plan completely butchered. Finally, after weeks of back and forth, Yintech agreed to fly to Atlanta to meet in person and finalize the contract. This was it! I'd made it happen! Blake was giddy, strutting around the office like he had personally brought the deal home. I didn't care. I was just proud it was working. Then, the meeting. Yintech arrived, 6 execs in sharp gray suits, their translator quietly beside them. I was in the room, sitting near the corner of the conference table. Blake opened the meeting with a joke that didn't land, and then launched into a 10-minute PowerPoint, all in English. The translator beside the Yintech team whispered frantically, but they were visibly confused. Some leaned in to ask each other what was being said. Finally, I raised a hand gently. "Blake," I said carefully, "they're not following. I can translate in real time if needed." He waved me off, literally waved his hand in my direction like I was an annoying fly. "No need. We've got a translator here," he said, nodding to Yintech's guy. "Let's keep the energy up." The translator couldn't keep up. Blake was throwing around metaphors and technical jargon that didn't translate cleanly. I caught Mr. Lee, the lead Yintech negotiator, furrow his brow and say in Mandarin, "Are they taking this seriously?" I leaned forward and softly said, "Mr. Lee, I'm happy to assist with interpretation if that would be helpful." His eyes lit up. "You speak Mandarin?" he asked, surprised. "Yes, fluently. I've been your primary liaison from the beginning." He turned to the others and whispered something. They nodded. Then, just as I began to translate the current slide, Blake stopped the meeting. "Megan, I said we're good. Let the professionals handle this." The room fell into a heavy silence. The Yintech team exchanged glances. I sat back, my face burning with embarrassment. The meeting stumbled through the next hour, and I watched, helpless, as misunderstanding after misunderstanding piled up. 3 days later, Yintech pulled out of the deal. Blake was furious. And the following Monday, I was called into HR. "We've decided to go in a different direction," they told me. "We're restructuring." I wasn't even given a real explanation. No severance, no acknowledgement, just a cold signature at the bottom of a termination letter. They fired the only person who spoke Mandarin, the only one who understood the deal, the only one who actually gave a damn about the company's future. I walked out of that building in a daze, gripping a cardboard box with my name scrawled in Sharpie on the side. As I stepped into the parking lot, the Atlanta humidity already clinging to my skin, I remember whispering to myself, they're going to regret this. They had no idea who they just pushed aside. No idea what I was capable of. But they were about to find out.
I didn't go home that day. I just drove. I didn't even know where I was going. I pulled out of the Aeroforge parking lot, still clutching that stupid cardboard box with my framed photo of me and Sam from his graduation and a coffee mug that said, "World's Best Multitasker." I drove until the sun started dipping low behind the Atlanta skyline, wound up at a Waffle House just off I-75 near Marietta. That's where I sat in a booth, staring at a plate of scattered, smothered, and covered hash browns I hadn't touched, while the overhead radio played faintly in the background, and a waitress named Connie with silver curls kept refilling my coffee. I don't remember crying. I just remember this heavy, bone-deep silence inside me, like someone had turned the volume down on everything. 12 years. 12 years I'd poured myself into building that career. And it was gone. Not because I messed up, not because I dropped the ball, but because some clueless CEO couldn't recognize value unless it came in a 6'2" golf buddy package. I kept hearing Blake's voice in my head. Let the professionals handle this. It was like being told, to your face, you're not one of us. I could have taken it, maybe, if it was just that. But it wasn't. What broke me, what really carved a hole in my chest, was that no one stood up for me. Not one person in that room said, actually, Megan's been handling this entire deal. Not one text after I left, not one damn email. I'd been invisible for so long. I think I started to believe I deserved it. That's when the anger crept in. Not hot and explosive, but cold, controlled. I sat there in that booth and thought, I gave them everything, and they discarded me like a faulty printer. Then I thought, what if they need that printer tomorrow and it's gone? What if the whole system crashes without it? That was the first spark. I spent the next few days holed up in my apartment in Midtown. I ignored calls from my mom. She'd only say something like, "You'll find something else, sweetie." And I couldn't take that. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up everything I had on Aeroforge. You see, they underestimated the translator girl. What they forgot is that I was the one handling their most sensitive cross-border deals. I had copies of contracts, partnership memos, even unreleased product specs translated for internal documentation. And my contacts? They weren't just casual connections. I'd spent years building relationships with execs in China, people who trusted me, people who only spoke to Aeroforge because I was the one holding the conversation. Without me, they were mute. I pulled up Mr. Lee's WeChat. The last message from him was the day after the disastrous meeting. "Lee, are you okay? It felt off. They didn't let you speak." I stared at it for a long time before finally typing, "Me, they fired me." A few seconds passed. Then, "Lee, mistake, big one." 2 days later, I had lunch with an old colleague, Daniel Kim. He used to work with me in the Asia-Pacific division before he left to join a rising startup in San Francisco. We met at a Korean barbecue spot on Buford Highway. The smell of grilled short ribs and sesame oil clung to the air, but I could barely taste my food. Daniel looked at me like I was a puzzle missing pieces. "You're serious? They let you go?" he asked, flipping some galbi on the grill with tongues. "After you closed the Yuntech pipeline?" "I didn't see it that way," I muttered. "They're insane." "I'm done trying to convince people I matter," I said, folding my napkin tightly in my lap. "But I'm not done with them." He raised an eyebrow. "You want revenge?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, I want them to feel what I felt. I want them to realize they fired the wrong damn person. I want them to watch their shiny tower crack and know I had a hand in it. Daniel leaned back, nodding slowly. Then I think I know where you should start. That's when he told me about Lunaris. It was a startup that had been quietly making waves in the defense-adjacent aerospace software sector, led by a group of former MIT engineers and one ex-NSA consultant. Lunaris was about to launch a logistics AI program designed specifically for multilingual supply chains. It could translate and process multinational defense contracts in real time. Think ChatGPT meets global trade law. And guess what? They were desperate to expand into China, but lacked cultural and linguistic expertise. I could get you in the room, Daniel said, sipping his barley tea. No promises, but they'd be fools not to hire you. I didn't even hesitate. Set it up. The following week, I met the Lunaris team in a co-working space in San Francisco. Bare walls, exposed brick, standing desks, and the smell of overpriced pour-over coffee. I sat across from 3 men and 1 woman, all in hoodies and jeans, all with laptops open even during our conversation. But they listened. I walked them through what had happened with Aeroforge, not as a pity party, but to show them what happens when companies mismanage their global arms. Then I laid out what I could bring: connections in China's tech corridors, a fluency not just in language, but in culture, and a track record of securing deals other American firms couldn't even get a meeting for. By the end of the meeting, the founder, a quiet guy named Ravi with sharp eyes, said, "You're not just who we need. You're who they'll wish they still had." They offered me a position on the spot, Director of Global Strategy, a bigger title, better pay, and, most importantly, respect. But I didn't say yes right away. Can I make one condition? Shoot. If I bring over any clients or partners, I want full control over those relationships. No middlemen, no clueless CEOs cutting me off. Ravi smirked. You're driving this ship. We'll just be lucky to hang on. I accepted. Over the next 3 months, I worked like a woman possessed. I started reactivating my contacts, one by one. I didn't poach. I didn't beg. I simply told them the truth. I've moved on to a company that sees my value. We're offering smarter solutions, better terms, and, more importantly, a human being who understands you. A few were hesitant, but most, they were thrilled. In Chinese business culture, loyalty is personal. It's not to a logo. It's to people. I wasn't just some middlewoman. I was their bridge, their translator, their trust. By April, Lunaris had signed 3 contracts previously held by Aeroforge, including a software partnership with Shangsu Systems, which had been Aeroforge's biggest Asian client for 5 years. The cherry on top? Shangsu's leadership sent an email to Blake Hawthorne's office explaining the change. I wasn't CC'd, but I knew what it said. Daniel called me 2 days later, laughing over the phone. Guess who's suddenly trying to hire Chinese consultants off of Fiverr? I smirked. How's that working out? They accidentally sent one client a literal menu translation for a parts order. We both howled. But revenge isn't just about laughing on the phone. Sometimes it's about being seen. Then something unexpected happened. One night, I was reviewing contract terms in my tiny San Francisco apartment, chopsticks in one hand, leftover shrimp lo mein in the other, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Hello? Megan, it's Blake. I froze. For a second, I thought it was a prank, but then I heard that smug undertone I'd grown to loathe. He continued, Look, I've been hearing some things about you, about Lunaris. Seems like you've, bounced back. I didn't say anything. He went on. I was wondering if you'd be open to, coffee,
just to catch up, maybe talk about some consulting opportunities. That's when it hit me. He didn't see me even now. He saw the damage, the missing clients, the closed doors, and now he wanted to slap duct tape over the holes. Like I was the patch? My hands trembled, not from fear, but from restraint. I took a breath. "I'll think about it," I said, and then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment before placing it beside my lo mein, my appetite suddenly gone. It wasn't enough. The cracks were forming, sure, the empire was wobbling, but Blake? He still thought he could talk his way out of it. Still thought he was the smartest guy in the room. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to patch his company. I was going to bury it. And I knew exactly where to start.
There's a difference between getting even and making sure they never forget your name. After that phone call from Blake, I didn't sleep for a full night in weeks. Not because I was scared. I wasn't. Not anymore. I was focused, wired, alive, moving through each day like a strategist in a war room. He thought he could string together a few polite words, offer me coffee, and I'd come running back like a good little soldier. No. I wanted to watch him scramble. I wanted to see his carefully manufactured world fall apart piece by piece, quietly, precisely, until the floor dropped beneath his feet and all that was left was the truth. He needed me. It started with Kayla. She'd been the last friend I had inside Aeroforge, a mid-level project coordinator with too many responsibilities and not nearly enough credit, kind of like me back in the day. We'd bonded over takeout dinners and late-night budget revisions in the office. After my firing, she went quiet. I assumed she was scared to talk to me. I didn't blame her. But after that phone call from Blake, I reached out. "Me. Hope you're doing okay. Just wanted to say no hard feelings if you've kept your distance. But I think we both know the place isn't what it pretends to be." I didn't expect a reply. But 10 minutes later, the 3 dots popped up. "Kayla. It's worse. A lot worse. People are quitting left and right. They've outsourced half the international team. Everyone's scared." Then a second message. "You didn't hear this from me, but there's a file, a report. Something big. I'll try to get it to you." That's when the real chess game began. I wasn't just trying to hurt Blake anymore. I was peeling back layers. Corruption, incompetence, mismanagement, and it was all sitting beneath the surface, like a landfill dressed up in designer suits. While I waited to hear back from Kayla, I focused on the next part of my plan, targeting the core vendors and suppliers that kept Aeroforge's back end running. These were the silent partners. Small logistics companies, third-party vendors in Malaysia, parts manufacturers in Thailand. People Aeroforge barely treated as human. I knew them by name. I'd sat across from their founders, shaken their hands, and looked them in the eye while Blake's team sent them cold, templated emails. And I still had their trust. I started reaching out. Not aggressively, just curiously. "Hey, I'm working with Lunaris now. We're expanding. Looking for reliable partners. Thought of you." Every message came with no pressure, no sales pitch. But they responded fast. By the end of the month, 5 of Aeroforge's key overseas vendors had moved their contracts to Lunaris, or, at the very least, paused negotiations with Blake's team. I got a message from one of Aeroforge's former translators in Taiwan. She said Blake's company had started using Google Translate to handle internal memos from their suppliers. I laughed so hard, I nearly dropped my coffee. You can't run a global business through a browser extension. Then came the real turning point. One night, Early May, I got an encrypted email from Kayla. No message in the body. Just an attachment labeled Yuntech Follow-up Internal.pdf. I downloaded it, heart hammering in my chest. It was a 12-page internal report, confidential, and it was damning. Apparently, Aeroforge had quietly tried to blame the failed Yuntech deal on me. The report included notes from Blake and several senior VPs suggesting that I had gone rogue, spoken out of turn, and disrupted the negotiation process. There were words like insubordination, cultural insensitivity, and even one line circled in red on the scanned document that reads, "Megan's emotional overreach may have cost us the deal." I had to reread that line 5 times. Emotional overreach? They sabotaged their own contract by refusing to let me speak, and now they were painting me as some hysterical, overreaching woman? I clenched my jaws so tight it hurt. I'd kept my mouth shut for too long, and now I had evidence. The next day, I printed out 3 copies of the document and slid them into manila envelopes. I sent one to a contact at the Interlink, a mid-tier business journal known for reporting on corporate misconduct. I'd worked with one of their writers in DC years. She owed me a favor. The second copy I sent to Yuntech's compliance department. And the third? I kept it. Because this war wasn't done. 3 days later, Monica called me. "You were right. It's gold. We've already verified the source. Your name's safe. We won't mention you. But this report, it's gonna rattle cages." The article went live the following Monday. Internal sabotage. Aeroforge execs blame employee for multi-million-dollar loss. Leaked memo revealed. It exploded. Not on CNN, not on Bloomberg, but inside the industry, it spread like wildfire. LinkedIn was ablaze with reposts and speculation. Aeroforge employees, past and present, started anonymously sharing stories in the comments. I recognized some of them, names I hadn't heard in years, people I thought forgot me. Turns out, they didn't. That same week, Lunaris started getting new inquiries. Companies that had cut ties with Aeroforge were now interested in us. A mid-tier aircraft systems supplier in Chengdu, a logistics hub in Busan. And then 2 weeks later, the crown jewel, Yuntech. Mr. Lee reached out directly. "I read the article," he said over Zoom, looking calm but deliberate. "We knew something was off. We didn't know it was that bad." I held back my emotion, just nodded. "We're expanding into software automation," he continued. "We'd like to discuss a partnership with Lunaris, but only if you're our point of contact." I felt my chest tighten, not with anxiety, but with something deeper. Satisfaction. Full circle energy. "I'll personally oversee everything," I said. "We trust you," he replied. And just like that, the deal Aeroforge lost, the one they blamed me for, was mine again. But success has a strange way of stirring old waters. That night, I was sitting on my couch in sweatpants watching reruns of The West Wing when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up, bracing myself. "Hello?" Silence. Then Blake's voice. Cold. Quiet. "You're leaking company memos now." I didn't say anything. He continued. "You think you've won, huh? You got a few contracts, stirred the pot, got your name in some blog?" "It was a journal," I said flatly, "and I didn't leak anything. People just saw the truth." He scoffed. "I made you," he said. "You wouldn't be where you are if it wasn't for us." Something in me snapped. "You didn't make me," I said, my voice steady.
You tried to erase me, and now you're choking on the gap I left behind." More silence. Then he muttered something that chilled me. "You don't know who you're messing with." And he hung up. I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, the blue glow of the TV flickering across my living room wall. He was angry now. Cornered. Dangerous. And that meant this was far from over. I had exposed him. I had outmaneuvered him, but I also knew Blake. He wouldn't go down without a fight. He'd try something. Something stupid. Something desperate. And I had to be ready. Because the next move might not be mine.
When someone like Blake gets desperate, he doesn't get sloppy. He gets dangerous. See, men like him, corporate predators in custom-tailored suits, they've built entire careers off knowing how to twist the knife while smiling across the boardroom table. Their ego isn't just fragile, it's venomous. If you wound it, it doesn't heal. It hunts. I didn't realize just how far Blake would go until it was too late to pretend this was still a game. It started subtle. I walked into Lunara's HQ one Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, earbuds in, halfway through a podcast, when Ravi pulled me into his glass-walled office. He looked up from his laptop, eyes narrowed. "Did you authorize this?" he asked, turning the screen toward me. It was a forwarded email from a small aerospace parts manufacturer in Kunming, one we'd been in talks with for weeks. "We regret to inform you that due to allegations of IP theft and ongoing legal review, we are suspending all negotiations with Lunaris, effective immediately." My heart stopped. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. "There's more," Ravi said grimly. He clicked into another tab, an anonymous blog post on a mid-tier defense industry news site. The headline hit me like a punch in the ribs. "New player, old tricks, rumors swirl around ex-Aeroforge employee at Lunaris." I scanned the article, jaw clenching. It painted a vague, poisonous picture. Accusations of stealing proprietary tech, exploiting client relationships, unethical tactics. No names, no concrete facts, but just enough insinuation to make someone think twice. And there, buried in the fourth paragraph, sources close to Aeroforge allege that a former employee, now working with competitor Lunaris, may have downloaded sensitive files prior to termination. That was a lie. A calculated reputational assassination, and I knew exactly where it came from. Blake. He was trying to smear me. He couldn't take back the contracts I'd won, couldn't erase the article that exposed him, so now he was taking the dirty road, trying to make me look like the villain, planting rumors, sending whispers through the supply chain, scaring clients off before they could even shake my hand. I stared at Ravi. "I didn't steal anything," I said, my voice shaking with quiet fury. "I know that," he said, "but clients might not." He tapped the desk. "You need to clean this up, fast." I spent the next 2 weeks doing damage control. I called every single client in our Asia pipeline, personally, one by one. Some were understanding, others were hesitant, especially the smaller firms who couldn't afford to take risks. One CEO even said, "This kind of controversy, it makes us nervous. Maybe next quarter." I hung up, staring at the wall. Blake wasn't just coming after me, he was trying to burn the entire house down around me. And the worst part? It was working. I was walking home one night, San Francisco fog curling low over the sidewalks, my heels echoing faintly on the pavement, when my phone rang. Blocked number. I paused under a street lamp and picked up. Megan Rivers? A male voice. Flat. Mechanical. "Yes? Who is this?" This is Officer Devlin with the San Francisco Police Department. We've received a report regarding alleged theft of intellectual property from Aeroforge Systems. You've been listed in the complaint. I felt like the ground tipped under me. What? No, that's not true. I understand. We're not making accusations at this time, but we'll need you to come in for a statement. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., south of Market Precinct. My mouth dried. Am I under investigation? You're a person of interest, ma'am. Just come in. Then he hung up. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay on my couch, curled under a throw blanket, replaying the phone call over and over. A criminal complaint? Was he really trying to get me arrested? No, this wasn't just corporate bullying anymore. This was personal destruction. The next morning, I sat across from a pair of detectives, one grizzled, one fresh-faced, inside a cramped, too bright interrogation room. They weren't hostile, but they were firm. Miss Rivers, can you confirm if you downloaded any internal Aeroforge documents after your termination? No, I said calmly. I only ever accessed documents related to my direct responsibilities while I was employed there, nothing after. They asked about Kayla, about whether I'd had help getting unauthorized files. I didn't mention her. I wouldn't drag her into this. By the time they let me go, it was almost noon. I stepped outside into the cold sunlight, shoulders tense, heart pounding. Blake had just escalated to war. Back at the office, Ravi called me into a meeting. I expected tension, doubt, maybe even talk of suspension while things played out. But instead, I walked in to find him, Daniel, and two other Lunaris partners sitting silently around a long wooden table. They looked furious. Ravi slid a printed page across the table to me. Read this. It was an email, an internal memo from Aeroforge's legal counsel. Leaked. Subject, strategy to pressure Lunaris defection. In it, they outlined their plan. Use vague legal threats, send anonymous tips to reporters, leak false accusations to international vendors. A smear campaign. And they'd accidentally copied a vendor partner on the email, who immediately sent it to Lunaris. I felt my breath hitch. So I wasn't paranoid. It wasn't in my head. This was real. They were actively trying to destroy me, my name, my work, my future. Daniel leaned forward, eyes blazing. We're not letting them do this to you. Ravi nodded. You've earned more than loyalty, Megan. You've earned our protection. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But then Daniel said something that turned my stomach. He said, "There's one more thing, and you're not going to like it." He slid another folder toward me. Inside, screenshots, dozens of text messages. From Kayla to someone named Marcus Dean. I blinked. Marcus had been a junior compliance analyst at Aeroforge, young, ambitious, always hanging around the HR office, always trying to impress the execs. We barely talked, but the messages told a different story. Yeah, I got the file she needed. She doesn't know I sent it from a dummy login. She thinks I'm helping her. Blake wants her isolated. I'm just greasing the wheels. I stared at the pages, my mouth dry. Kayla had set me up. Or worse, she'd been playing both sides. I stood up from the table, dizzy, chest tight. No, she wouldn't. She was the only one who... She was feeding Blake the info the whole time, Daniel said quietly. Maybe she got scared, maybe she got paid. Doesn't matter now. Everything tilted. The only person I thought I could trust inside that building had handed me over like bait. All that time, I thought I was a step ahead, but Blake had been moving pieces too, and I wasn't sure who else he had on his side. I looked at Ravi. What do we do? He didn't smile, didn't blink. He said, "We go nuclear." Some battles are fought in courtrooms, others in headlines. But the most brutal ones, they happen in silence, behind closed doors, inside inboxes, in the quiet spaces where reputations are written and destroyed. I always thought revenge would feel like fire, raging, loud, victorious. But the closer I got to ending Blake, the colder it felt. Because once you cross that line, there's no going back. After we confirmed the betrayal, that Kayla had sold me out, Ravi gave me the green light. "Take the gloves off," he said. "You've got our full support." And I knew exactly where to start. We filed a lawsuit against Aeroforge. Defamation, retaliation, interference with business relationships. And because Lunares backed me, we had the legal firepower to go toe-to-toe with Blake's corporate attorneys. Our lawyers gathered everything: internal leaks, screenshots, client statements, even the anonymous article seeded by his PR team. The case wasn't just solid, it was bulletproof. And Blake? He didn't see it coming. Because for all his smug posturing, he never believed I had the guts to take it this far. He still saw me as the translator girl. Quiet, harmless, replaceable. He had no idea I'd become a fuse with her teeth clenched around a match. The lawsuit made waves. The tech industry blogs picked it up first, then a few mainstream outlets. Whistleblower lawsuit filed against Aeroforge over smear campaign, retaliatory firing. Suddenly, my name was back in the headlines. But this time, not as a shadow or a whisper. This time, people were watching. My LinkedIn exploded with support. Former clients messaged me things like, "I always knew you were the brain behind the deals. Proud of you for standing up." Even strangers reached out. Women, immigrants, underpaid, overlooked workers who'd spent years being stepped on by men like Blake. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every person who ever had their name erased from a PowerPoint they built. But Blake didn't go quiet. He fought back. Dirty. His legal team tried to get the case dismissed, claimed it was meritless, vindictive, a disgruntled employee seeking attention. He held a company-wide town hall where he called the lawsuit a distraction orchestrated by a bitter ex-employee who couldn't adapt to change. I saw the clip online, watched his face on the grainy video as he smirked and leaned against a podium. It made my skin crawl. He always did love to lie with confidence. But what he didn't know was that someone inside his own company had already flipped. 2 weeks into the discovery process, our lawyers got a call from an anonymous whistleblower, an Aeroforge compliance analyst. He didn't give a name, just an encrypted folder. Inside, emails. Real ones. From Blake. Ordering his team to fabricate internal memos about me, encouraging manipulation of client communications, even one where he directly told a subordinate to bury a subcontractor's concerns by threatening legal recourse. I read every email with trembling hands. He didn't just bend the rules, he broke them repeatedly, and this time we had the receipts. That's when everything shifted. Our lawyers filed a motion to compel full disclosure from Aeroforge, requested Blake's internal communications, his Slack logs, his personal company email archive. They fought it, of course, but the judge sided with us. Because when you smell smoke that thick, you don't ignore the fire. I should have felt elated. Instead, I felt cold. Because now I knew how deep the rot went. This wasn't just a CEO with a fragile ego. This was a man willing to ruin lives to protect his own legacy. Then came the moment I didn't see coming. It was a Monday. I was in a strategy meeting at Lunares when Daniel leaned in, pale-faced, and whispered, "Kayla is in the lobby." My stomach dropped. "What?" "She says she wants to talk to you. Alone." I hesitated. Every fiber in my body told me to say no, but I needed answers. I needed to look her in the eye. I met her in the cafe across the street. It was mostly empty, just the soft clink of ceramic mugs and quiet jazz in the background. She looked thinner than I remembered. Eyes tired, wrinkled blouse, nervous fingers wrapped around a lukewarm chai latte. She started, Megan, but I cut her off. Why? Her lips trembled. She looked down at her drink. I didn't know it would go that far. You sold me out. You gave them access. You helped them destroy my name. She nodded, tears building in her eyes. I was scared. HR threatened me, said that if I didn't cooperate, I'd be next, that they would blacklist me. I needed the money, my mom's medical bills, and... Stop, I said, swallowing hard. You could have warned me, just once. She looked up, eyes glassy. I didn't think you'd make it out. I thought Blake would win. Everyone always loses to him. I sat back, arms crossed, chest tight. But you didn't just stay silent. You played me, pretended to help, all that time. I know, she whispered. I hate myself for it. There was a long silence. Finally, I asked, why now? Why show up? She reached into her purse and slid a USB drive across the table. This has everything. Financial reports, off-books vendor payments, backdated contract edits, all tied to Blake. I stared at it, then back at her. What's the catch? No catch. Just do what I couldn't. Burn it all down. I took the drive. She stood to leave. Before she walked away, she looked at me and said, make him pay. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment staring at the blinking folder on my desktop. Inside, dozens of files, invoices, emails, budget spreadsheets marked "Do Not Distribute." It was all there. Fraud, cover-ups, even payments made to suppress vendor complaints in Malaysia and Vietnam. Bribes, essentially. It wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. I met with our attorneys the next morning. They nearly fell out of their chairs. This isn't just defamation anymore, one of them said. This is federal. This is SEC-level fraud. We're talking prison time if this holds up. Ravi looked at me across the table. You sure you want to go this far? I nodded once. I'm done being scared of him. He exhaled, slow and serious. Okay, we go public. 3 days later, we held a press conference. Lunaris's legal team presented the evidence. We handed over the USB files to federal investigators. The Interleak released a follow-up expose. Inside the collapse, leaked documents reveal financial fraud at Aeroforge. It was brutal. Within 48 hours, Aeroforge's board announced a full investigation. By the end of the week, the Department of Justice had launched an inquiry. And Blake? He vanished from social media. No more podcast interviews. No LinkedIn posts. Just silence. For the first time, he wasn't the one writing the story. I thought that would be the end. That I'd finally get peace. But peace has a funny way of slipping through your fingers just when you reach for it. Because 2 weeks after the press conference, just when I was beginning to breathe again, I got a call from an unknown number, but this time, it wasn't Blake. It was a woman's voice, shaky, nervous. Is this Megan Rivers? Yes? Who is this? My name is Candace. I used to work for Aeroforge, in procurement. My heart ticked faster. I saw the news about the lawsuit, the fraud, but there's something else, something no one's talking about. I stood from my chair, walking slowly toward my office window. What is it? She hesitated, then dropped the bomb. I think Blake is hiding something offshore. Accounts, shell companies, and there's one under your name.
I stopped breathing. What did you just say? It's a setup. If the feds look at it without context, they'll think you were in on it. I didn't know who else to call. I felt my legs weaken. My name tied to offshore accounts? He wasn't just trying to destroy my reputation. He was trying to frame me.
There's a moment, right before you pull the last thread, when the silence is almost deafening. You're not angry anymore, not panicked. You're just waiting. That's what it felt like after that call from Candace. Like I was standing on a wire, stretched between everything I'd fought for and everything I still stood to lose. Because now, I wasn't just the whistleblower. I was a target. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing my apartment, my mind replaying her words. There's one under your name. My name. He didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted to make sure if anyone ever looked up Megan Rivers, the first thing they'd see wasn't an award or a leadership article. It'd be fraud charges. He wanted me erased, top to bottom. The terrifying part? If I hadn't picked up that call, I might have never known. The next morning, I called Ravi and our legal team. We got Candace on a secure Zoom. She was terrified. You could see it in the way her eyes darted, how she kept glancing over her shoulder. But she had documentation, spreadsheets, wire transfers, email fragments, and then one PDF that made my blood run cold. A Cayman Islands Shell Corporation, Griffin Axis Ltd., and listed under the regional account manager role, Megan Rivers. But I'd never even heard of it. Why would Blake do this? Ravi asked her. Candace hesitated, then said, because he knew this day might come. He always said, if you're gonna build a castle, build a moat first, and dig graves for your enemies before they become a problem. I didn't speak. I couldn't. All I could feel was this tidal wave of betrayal, manipulation, and deep, bone-crushing exhaustion. He'd been building a backdoor exit plan for years, and I was his fall guy. We acted fast. Our legal team immediately disclosed the offshore account to federal investigators before they found it themselves. We gave them the documents Candace provided, every timeline, every alibi, every shred of proof that it was a fabrication. It was a gamble, but it worked. Within days, I was cleared, officially. My name removed from all documentation and flagged as falsified by Aeroforge's internal finance team, on Blake's personal directive. But Blake? The walls were caving in. When the FBI raided Aeroforge's Atlanta office, I was sitting in a hotel room 2 blocks away. I didn't plan to be there, but I needed to see it. I watched through binoculars like it was some surreal movie. Agents in navy jackets, file boxes, a camera crew from Channel 11 Alive pulling up just as the front doors were locked down. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled. For the first time in months, I let go. Blake Hawthorne was arrested 6 days later on charges of wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and corporate espionage. The headlines were brutal. CEO indicted in international fraud scheme, attempted to frame former employee. From power broker to perp walk, Blake Hawthorne's fall of grace. The video of him being let out in handcuffs, I never shared it, never reposted it, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. And truth had finally done what I couldn't with words alone. It crushed him. After the dust settled, I took time off. Ravi insisted, "You've been in a war zone, Megan. Rest before you build again." So I flew home to North Carolina, Spent 2 weeks with my mom in her little blue house near Asheville, helped her garden, walked the dog, watched old movies with Sam, and finally let my shoulders drop. My mom hugged me one night, tight and quiet. She said, "I never stopped believing in you." And for the first time since this started, I believed in me, too. 6 months later, I was named VP of Global Strategy at Lunaris. We expanded operations into 6 new markets, tripled our vendor network, and secured 3 government-adjacent contracts Aeroforge used to brag about. I didn't take them to gloat. I took them to build something better, something rooted in integrity. I sometimes think about Kayla. She disappeared after everything broke, deleted her socials, went off the grid. Part of me still hates her. The other part pities her. She chose fear. I chose the fire. We all make our choices. And Blake, he's facing 15 years. His trial starts this fall. I've been subpoenaed to testify. Do I want to face him again? Not really. But I will. Because silence is what men like him count on, and I've learned how to raise my voice. This whole experience, it changed me. I used to think being professional meant shrinking yourself, keeping your head down, letting people walk all over you as long as the check cleared. But power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just refuses to back down. I'm not the same woman that sat in that boardroom, silent and small, while men talked over her. Now, I speak, and people listen. So where am I now? I'm 36, living in San Francisco, still building, still translating, but this time, not just languages. I translate vision into action, loss into leadership, pain into purpose. And the funny part, I don't even think about Blake that much anymore, because he's a chapter I've already closed, and I've got a whole book left to write. Thanks for listening. Sometimes the people who try to break you are just the fuel for the person you were meant to become. And sometimes the best revenge is not becoming like them. Sometimes the justice we're looking for doesn't come from the courts. It comes from standing tall when others try to tear you down. If you've ever had someone underestimate or betray you, share your story in the comments below. Hit that like button if this story struck a chord. Subscribe for more cinematic revenge tales. And don't forget, healing is the fiercest form of revenge. Until next time.